Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, yes, you're audible.
Okay.
Hare Krishna
Yes,
Prabhu.
Prabhu, you are audible.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
So, give me just 1 second. Such an important, auspicious day. So, let's start today's session. So this is dedicated to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. So today's session to speak about Srimati Radharani, and that too with a limited time of 1 hour. It's a challenge in itself, but with the time that we have together, let's try to understand about Srimati Radharani from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So what we will do is, we will try to understand Radha Tattva in 3 parts. To understand Srimati Radharani, first of all, we have to understand who are we, what is our position, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then who is Srimati Radharani. Now, even before proceeding to see who are we, what is our position, which we have discussed many times, it's very important to have the right context, which can be set from one verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, which goes like this: Yad anudhyasina yuktaha karma granthi nibandhanam chindanti kovidastasya kona kuryat katharathim. It's a very instructive verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. This comes in the Divinity and Divine Services in the 2nd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 15th verse. So if you see this verse, Yad Anudhya Asina Yukta. Asina is a sword. Yad Anudhya. Yad means when we do this. Yad Anudhyasina Yukta. So when we have the sword of remembrance of Krishna's pastimes, Yad Anudhyasina Yukta Karma Granthi Nibandhanam. Karma Granthi Nibandhanam Chindanti Kovidastasya Kona Kuryat Katharathim. Karma Granthi is a very important word used in this verse, which is the hard knots. Like I'll show you what is a hard knot, and we will try to see Nibandhanam. And when a living entity, when someone is bound up, very uncomfortable situation, how does one come out of that situation? So here in this verse it is mentioned, Yad Anudhyasina Yukta. By having this sword of remembrance, one can cut these knots. These knots of, what are these knots? Karma Granthi, we will see. It can be cut. Kono Kuryat Katharatim, who will not be interested in hearing about these pastimes? With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Kono Kuryat Katharatim, who will not pay attention? So that means the next 1 hour that we are spending together, we should pay attention to these words, because it gives us Yad Anudhyasina Yuktaha. When we are, when we are endowed with the sword of remembrance of Krishna's pastimes, then it can cut the knots of our karma granthi. Imagine, look at this position of this man. Yep. Both hands and legs. Not a very comfortable position. And if in that case, somebody has to help him, or somebody has to relieve him from this kind of a situation, and there has to be a sword which is very sharp, and that sharp sword can cut this. But very interestingly, how many of us feel that we've got these knots? We don't feel that. We don't feel we are bound by any sort of knots. Forget about hands and legs being bound. And that is why this verse is so important, where Prabhupada is saying karma granthi means knot. Just like a man, if he is tied strongly with ropes, hand and legs, he cannot move independently. Similarly, we are tied up by the laws of material nature. We are tied up by the laws of material nature. Prabhupada says, when we become criminal, suppose somebody becomes a criminal, right? We are always bound up by the laws of the state, either criminal or civil, doesn't matter. But the criminal laws are stronger. And when we are under the criminal laws, then it becomes very painful. We cannot violate the state laws, either criminal or civil, it doesn't matter. But if we violate the civil law, there is no such strong punishment. But if we violate the criminal laws, then it is very strong. Similarly, we living entities, those who are conditioned by this body itself is punishment. That, Prabhupada says, people do not know. They are trying to enjoy this body. The body means there are senses, and the senses need satisfaction, they need enjoyment. Prabhupada gives the example of a hog, like a hog who has forgotten that he has got a body of a hog, and he is bound to eat stool, living in a filthy place. But because he has got this facility of sense gratification with other female hogs, never mind whether it is sister, mother, or daughter, he is happy. This is hog's life. The hog is satisfied. He doesn't matter. We are seeing that what abominable condition in a filthy place he is eating stool. We are conscious that what is the condition of his life, but he is very happy. Oh, you see, what a very nice, happy, what a nice, happy life I have. I am eating very nicely, first class food, and having sex without any restriction. This is life. And Prabhupada says this is called Maya. And Maya means Prakshepatmika Sakti, covering. And there is Avaranatmika Sakti. So there are two energies, two potencies of Maya, Prakshepatmika Sakti and Avaranatmika Sakti. So a living entity is, it is when he has got this human body, or any body for that matter, there is a forgetfulness of his real nature. And he always is thinking, I am very happy. We are all right. And that is called Avaranatmika Sakti, because the real knowledge is covered. And then there is another Sakti called Prakshepatmika. Prakshepatmika means if anyone tries to get out of this, suppose somebody, some students are coming to Krishna consciousness, somebody is coming to attend this satsang, then Maya will dictate, oh, why are you going there? They're having so many restrictions, so many rules and regulations, better give it up. And this is what Prabhupada is saying, Prakshepatmika Sakti. Maya is dragging. And the more one is sinful, the more one is miscreant, the more one is the lowest of the mankind, Maya will not allow. Why this rascal is going there? He must suffer under Maya. Sometimes more than he may be allowed. And this is Maya's business, thankless business. And Prabhupada gives the example of a police. Police is nobody's enemy. But when a criminal, if he has to be punished, he's put in the jail, and the police, he's beaten up by this police with a rod. That is the business of Maya. Thankless job. Nobody will thank police. When police beats, nobody will say, oh, thank you very much. Nobody is happy. Similarly, Maya's business is very thankless task, but she is engaged by the supreme authority to punish. So long as one is not conscious, what is the position of my life? What am I doing here? That is called knot, tied up very tightly. And here is the medicine Anudhyasina Yukta. Hard knot can be cut by a sharp knife immediately. Similarly, this knot, this materialistic way of life is very strong. The Viyesha Gunamai, that day yesterday or day before yesterday, we were having a discussion. I was telling, being conscious of Krishna and cautious of Maya. And the knot is, the beginning of the knot is sex life. Very interestingly, actually Prabhupada gives a very nice example to illustrate this point, how we are bound up. Just pay attention, so powerful and striking example which Prabhupada gives. It's an excerpt from a lecture which Prabhupada has given on this verse. In that Prabhupada says, this knot, karma bandha phansa, satsang, this is satsang. You are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in front of Krishna and practicing how to become pure. This is called satsang. Actually, he's quoting from a verse from Narottam Das Thakur. Satsanga chadi karilu asatera bilas karma bandha pas. And when somebody gives up satsang, he comes in association with Maya, and that is how he becomes entangled by this karma bandha. What example Prabhupada is giving is asatsanga means this intoxication, illicit sex, and drinking. So many things, asatsanga. And he gives an example of an advertisement which was very popular when Prabhupada was there. It is a brand called Cool Cigarettes. So he's saying, come on, here is cigarette, cool. Make your brain cool. Laughter by smoking. By smoking, you become cool. I'll just share 1 second. If I'm not sure if I've shared the sound, let me share the sound.
Switch from Hots to Snow Fresh Filter Cool.
Cool, snow fresh, cool, tato clean, so refreshing, smoke cool.
As cool and as clean as a breath of fresh air. That's Snow Fresh Filter Cool.
Smoke cool.
Your mouth feels clean. Your throat refreshed. The finest leaf tobacco, mild, refreshing menthol, and the world's most thoroughly tested filter. That's Snow Fresh Filter Cool. Why don't you switch from Hots to the Snow Fresh coolness of cool? As cool and as clean as a breath of fresh air. America's most refreshing cigarette. Snow Fresh Filter Cool.
So this was a very popular ad actually, and it says Snow Fresh Cool. We have the statutory warning which comes with the cigarette pack. It says smoking kills. So this brand had smoking cools. And the penguin that you saw in the beginning was a very popular mascot of this brand. And Prabhupada had seen this and he's talking, this is how Maya attracts us. Oh, indulge in smoking. You'll be cool. You're burning cigarette, you're burning your body, and Maya is saying you'll be cool. This is exactly the comparison which Prabhupada made earlier of the hog eating stools, thinking that he's enjoying. But this is actually karma granthi, karma bandha. And this karma bandha, karma granthi can be cut by anudhyasina yukta. So let's go to the first part because we have limited time. So to understand who are we, what is our position? This is a very important thing, even though we have spoken about this many times, but it is very important to pay attention to this particular thing because then everything else makes sense. So to understand this, you might be thinking, what is this slide all about? Actually, when Srila Prabhupada established his movement in the US, he had come to India with few of his disciples. And so there were a lot of programs which were arranged by his disciples for Prabhupada to speak. Famous ones were the Pandal programs in Bombay. So when Prabhupada was in Bombay, there was one disciple by name Giriraj. He had organized one talk of Srila Prabhupada in one of the richest families of India, the Birlas. So I think it is, so the current Birla is Kumar Mangalam Birla. His father is Aditya Birla. His father is Ghanshyam Das Birla, GD Birla, under whose name this Birla family is. I mean, he was one of the most successful amongst his four brothers. So it is either GD Birla's wife or his daughter-in-law. I mean, either GD Birla's wife or Aditya Birla's wife, one of them, whose name is Gopi Kumari Birla. So this Giriraj Swami gave a list of topics to Birlas to choose what you want Prabhupada to talk on. Interestingly, Gopi Kumari Birla picked how to be successful in life. I mean, one would think Birlas being Birlas, the richest, one of the richest, they are successful. What is the need for, further success? But the topic she chose was how to be successful in life. That means despite having all those wealth, name, position, everything, there is still something which is lacking. They still want to be more successful. They still are not satisfied. But very interestingly, Srila Prabhupada gave a definition of success. After hearing that, even Birlas might have thought, yeah, this is worth it. This is worth going for it. What is the definition of success that Prabhupada gave? To understand that definition, that is what is our discussion. Prabhupada said, actually, living entity by nature is always controlled. We are always controlled. That is why we are called Tatastha Sakti, marginal potency. To illustrate this point by an example, Prabhupada actually gives the example of a seesaw. Seesaw is sometimes wet because of the high tide, and when the tide is not there, it is dry. So like that, the living entity sometimes comes under the influence of external energy, or sometimes it can remain under the influence of internal energy, but it has to be under control of someone, one of the energies. When the living entity is under control of the external energy, that is called Durga Devi, she has a trident in her hand and she pokes the living entity with the trident. The trident represents the three miseries which are inflicted on the conditioned living entity. Adhyatmik klesha, Adi Daivik klesha, Adi Bhautik klesha. The miseries which arise because of our own body and mind is called Adhyatmik klesha. The miseries which are inflicted upon us because of other living entities. You are just peacefully walking on the street, somebody comes and starts scolding, starts doing something malicious, starts throwing something at you. Or just out of no reasons, somebody is envious of you and he inflicts some pain. That is called Adi Bhautik. And then there is Adi Daivik, which is because of the natural miseries, the natural calamities, like there is famine, there is storm, there is cyclone, there is volcanic eruptions. All these miseries are inflicted upon us. So as long as the living entity is under the control of external energy, is constantly being inflicted with this three miseries. Whereas there is an internal energy of the Lord, which is called Alhadini Sakti. She is the pleasure potency of the Lord. And once one goes under the shelter of this pleasure potency of the Lord, she experiences bliss even in the conditioned life. How to understand that? Very nicely, Bhagavad Gita mentions about this in a verse called Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Daivim Prakritim Ashritaha Bhajanti Ananya Manaso Gyatva Bhutadim Abhyayam. The translation is, O son of Prutha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Those who are not deluded, the great souls, they are called Mahatmas, are under the protection of the divine nature. And this divine nature is referring to Daivim Prakritim, the internal potency of the Lord. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. There is one conversation, if you type this particular verse in the Vedaves, you will see that when Prabhupada was giving a lecture on this and he asked any questions, there was an American who asked, I've heard this term Mahatmas a lot. And in India, it seems there are so many Mahatmas who are taking birth. Mahatmas after Mahatmas after Mahatmas are coming. But why is India's condition so precarious? Why still India has got so many problems? To that, Prabhupada answered very nicely, the problem is people don't realize who Mahatma is. There is confusion as to who can be called as Mahatma. And in the purport, very nicely, Prabhupada says, the definition of Mahatma is clearly given, the description. What is that? The first sign of the Mahatma is that he is already situated in the divine nature. He is not under the control of material nature. If somebody doesn't know what is material nature, then Prabhupada is saying, this is explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. Daivihi esha gunamai mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam metam tarantite. That is the qualification. One can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the preliminary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of material nature, is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Daivi Prakriti, divine nature. So this is an important thing. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Daivi Prakriti. So we are marginal potency, but as soon as the living entity is freed, as soon as we become free from the control of material nature, then we'll come under the guidance of spiritual nature. So when one is promoted in that way, by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of great soul, Mahatma. The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma or great soul develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. This is an important thing. How does a Mahatma come about? It is, we know there is one freedom fighter who's very popular as Mahatma. But in this verse, actually, it is mentioned, how does a Mahatma come? A Mahatma comes about by associating with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of demigod or a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna in Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in the unswerving service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. So it is important to understand our position, as I mentioned, because we are talking about our position and how we are Tatastha Sakti. And what is the definition of success? If somebody asks, the definition of success is to come out of the control of external energy of the Lord and come under the influence of the internal energy of the Lord. And that is what exactly the definition of Mahatma is. One can become a Mahatma by associating with other Mahatmas. Part 2 is who's Krishna? We understood who are we to some extent. Now, this is also very important to understand who Krishna is, because often people ask this question, oh, you people worship too much of Krishna. And as far as Rama is concerned, it's fine because he's got one wife. ekapatni brata. But Krishna, character is a little bit of question mark. 16,000 wives, dancing with um, uh, unmarried or married cowherd girls, gopis. What is this? Why does Krishna do all this? Now, when somebody asks this question, one has to understand who Krishna is from the pages of scriptures. And this is very important. So let's understand who Krishna is. To understand this, let's see what Arjuna is saying once Krishna has explained who he is in his true nature in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. They are called the Chaturshloki Bhagavad Gita. After he has spoken that, Arjuna says, Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Saswatam Divyam, Adidevam Ajam Vibhum, Ahustvam Rishayas Sarve, Devarshir Naradas Tatha, Asito Devalo Vyasaha, Swayam Chaiva Brabhisime. Arjuna is addressing Krishna as Param Brahma. Param Brahma who's completely transcendental to this material nature, material world. Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. He's Param Pavitram, supremely pure. Paramam Bhavan, Purusham, Saswatam, Divyam, Adidevam, Ajam Vibhum. You are the supreme personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. So now this point needs to be understood properly. Otherwise, we will have all these misconceptions. So first of all, we think that Radharani is a female and Krishna is a male. So like I am a male or I am a female, whatever I am, I can enjoy with another partner because Krishna has also enjoyed with other partners. So what's wrong? I mean, Krishna enjoyed with 16,108 wives. Let me enjoy with few, 2, 3. I can have some Rasa Leela. People say that. So it is very important to understand our position and the position of the Supreme Lord. If we don't understand that properly, we will get into all this kind of misconceptions. To understand the position of the Lord, sometimes people say that Lord is like a Bindu or Nirakar, no form, unmanifested, Avyaktak, indescribable. But actually, Bhagavatam says very nicely, what is that verse? Badanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yad jnanam tad advayam brahmeti paramatma iti bhagavan iti satyate. Badanti tat tattvavidas. Tattvavidas, tattvavid, the knower of the truth, they say like this, that the supreme absolute truth can be understood in 3 ways: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Now, just to understand this Brahman, because we are using Param Brahma, the first word used by Arjuna is Param Brahma. Brahma means no tinge of material contamination, no attraction for material things. How do we understand this? So the sages, there is mention in the Bhagavatam, how the sages sacrifice everything in life, everything, for achieving that Brahman happiness. Even if it is little, for that they sacrifice everything. 2 examples. One is Bharat Maharaj, who gave up his family life, kingdom. He was the emperor of the whole universe, by whose name this whole universe was known as Bharatvarsha. He gave up at the prime of his youth. And then he went to the forest. He could give it up because they want to experience that higher happiness, Brahman. Second example is Sukadev Goswami. We were reading on Sunday Bhagavatam. Nirvikalpakaha. He was Brahman realized, absolutely fixed in Brahman. Ekantamatir. What is the other word used? He was completely fixed in Brahman, Nirvikalpakaha. How do we understand that he was fixed in Brahman? So there is an example given in Bhagavatam, which will come in the next verse, but it is worth mentioning here. Moment when we see another opposite sex, we get attracted. But it is mentioned in Bhagavatam when Sukadev Goswami, who was hardly 16 years old, he was walking naked because he was completely absorbed in his own internal consciousness and his self-realization. Absolutely nothing to do with the external world. So when he was passing by once, there was a pond or a river where there were some women who were taking bath. And when he passed by them, they didn't even cover their bodies because they saw that he's completely fixed in Brahman. So if this is the position of someone who's Brahman realized, what to speak of the Supreme Lord who's Param Brahma? How can there be tinge of contamination in his activities? So that is why there is a verse in Svetasvatar Upanishad which says, Parasya Saktir Vividhaiva Shruyate Swabhaviki Jnana Balakriyacha. What does this mean? This is a very important verse and very, very nice to understand. Supreme Lord has multipotencies which act so perfectly that all consciousness, strength, and activity are being directed solely by his will. So I was giving the example of Birla in the beginning. You see, any big people, any big person, let's say it is Tata's or like I was working in a plant of Tata's in Jamshedpur. It's one of the biggest plants they have in Jamshedpur. But I have never seen Ratan Tata coming there. Never, not even once. I worked there for about, of course, I worked there for a year and a half. But still, in a year and a half time, I never saw him coming there. But the whole plant is running. Everybody is doing their work properly. So imagine a big man in this material world. If he's really big, he doesn't have to do anything himself. He'll have servants, he'll have assistants, he'll have secretaries who are taking care of the whole things on his behalf. What to speak of the Supreme Lord? He is the Supreme Lord of the whole universe. He has multi-potencies, lot of potencies, lot of energies. Parasya Saktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. Unlimited energies. Swabhaviki Jnana Balakriyacha. Just by his desire that this should all work properly. There are different people who are acting. Swabhaviki Jnana Balak. Automatically this is going on. He need not do anything himself. There is a story which I have heard devotees say that there was an American who came along with the devotees of Srila Prabhupada and the disciples of Srila Prabhupada who was not initiated, and he was just experimenting. He was just trying to see what it is, and he went around in different temples in India. He saw that there were different gods, demigods being worshipped in different temples, who are standing in different forms. Somebody is carrying a trident, somebody is carrying a bow and arrow, somebody is carrying something else. And then he also saw the beautiful form of Radha and Krishna. And when he was asked ultimately, who is the Supreme Lord? He concluded it to be Radha and Krishna. And the reason he gave for that is that everybody else is busy doing something. Somebody is carrying this thing trident for something, sitting on a lion or doing something, somewhere another thing, some snake, something or other is going on. But Radha and Krishna, they don't have anything to do. They are just enjoying. Why would they do anything? What is the need for them to do anything? That's exactly Bhagavad Gita says, Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. For them, there is no activity, there is nothing which is recommended. Okay, so for the Lord, there is nothing recommended. He is the Supreme Lord. He has got multi-potencies. And we saw he is Param Brahma. Then who is Radharani? How does she come about? If I also mentioned that neither Krishna is male nor Radharani is female. Then what is the position of Radharani? To understand this, we have to see a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is Adi Leela, 1st chapter, 5th verse. The title there is not correct. So this verse is Radha Krishna Pranaya Bikritir Alhadini Saktir Asmad Ekat Mano Api Bhuvi Pura Deha Bhedam Gatautau Chaitanyakhyam Prakatam Adhuna Tadvayam Chaikyam Aptam Radha Bhava Dviti Subalitam Naumi Krishna Swarupam. Very, very important to understand this verse. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Alhadini Saktir Asmat. So this verse is saying Vikriti. The word Vikriti means transformation. Krishna transformed himself to Radharani. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Alhadini Saktir Asmat. As I said in the beginning, Parasya Saktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. Lord has unlimited potencies. One of the energies of the Lord is called this Alhadini Sakti, the pleasure potency. And that pleasure potency transformed into Radharani. Radha, Krishna, Pranaya, Vikritir, they're not different. But at the same time, Krishna transformed to Radharani, whose prime purpose is to give pleasure to Lord. Radha, Krishna, Pranaya, Vikritir, Alhadini, Saktir, Asmat, Ekatmano, they are same. Apibhubi, Pura, Deha Bhedam Gatautau. But they became two bodies. Ekatmano, Apibhubi, Pura, Deha Bhedam Gatautau. And then Radharani is, always engaged, always busy in serving Krishna, always engaged in, giving pleasure to Krishna. It is his potency who has come out, Alhadini Sakti, and she's engaged in serving Krishna. Then what is this verse saying? Chaitanyakyam prakatam adhuna tadvayam chaikyam aptam. But then Krishna one day thought, what is it that is in me that, is giving so much of pleasure to Radharani? What is it? Why is she so attracted to me? To understand the mood of Radharani, again, Radha Krishna became one and they came as, that energy came as Chaitanya. Chaitanyakyam prakatam adhuna tadvayam chaikyam aptam. Tadvayam, they were two, they became one. Radha bhava dviti subalitam naumi Krishna swarupam. And understand the position of Radharani is so exalted that Krishna himself wants to come in her mood to understand how she is so attracted to Krishna. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestation of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity previously, they separated themselves. Now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. I hope you would have got some understanding of who Radharani is, what is her position is. But still, okay, I understood who Radharani is, who Krishna is, what is our position. What is that one unique thing about Srimati Radharani which makes her appearance tomorrow such auspicious, such significant? What is that one thing? And why should I follow Radhastami, or why should I observe this, or what should I do tomorrow? What is that thing that I should do? Now this is the most important thing. As I said, this is the big concept of today's session. To understand this, I'll quote a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. But before I do that, there is a story which is written either by Rupa Goswami or Sanatana Goswami, but either one of them. It is mentioned that when Krishna left Vrindavan, we all know that Krishna performed his childhood pastimes in Vrindavan, and after a certain period of time, he left Vrindavan. And he never came back to Vrindavan. And all these cowherd boys, Nanda Baba, Yashoda Mai, Gopis, Srimati Radharani, they lived their rest of the life in separation of Krishna. And the state of their lives, the way it is described, as well as in Bhagavatam and elsewhere also, it's not like, sometimes people lose their near and dear ones, and the loss they overcome after a certain period of time. They get going with their lives. But they were completely shattered, completely crestfallen. Rest of the life, deep separation of Krishna. The purpose of living, there was no meaning of living life. But even in those conditions where Radharani was completely, completely saddened, I don't know what is the adjective, but she was completely dejected in separation of Krishna, still there is one great quality of Radharani. Anybody who comes with an intention of serving Krishna, she feels that he or she is a better devotee than me. Immediately she recommends him to Krishna. Whoever he may be, in whatever position he is. And if Radharani recommends, Krishna doesn't deny. There is a story which is there, I don't know if it is Rupa Goswami's writing or Sanatan Goswami's, of a jackal who was living in Radha Kund. So jackal is considered to be of a very lowly animal. I mean, like dog is considered very lowly. Of course, in this country, dog is treated separately. That's ironical. But a jackal is considered very lowly. Even amongst the animals, it's not considered. Nobody gives a comparison of a jackal. There's nothing actually. So one day, what happened? One jackal was being pelted stones by some of the children on the street, and this jackal, out of fear of his life, entered into some hole in a tree or something. And these children, they put some fires inside that. So there was this jackal started howling and crying very loudly. And that howling was heard by Radharani, and she asked her Sakhis to go and see who is crying, who's howling. And they found this jackal and they brought him to Radharani. And the jackal actually kept his head on Radharani's lotus feet, and Radharani was stroking and was very gentle. And it is mentioned that the jackal got Krishna prema. There was no condition. There was nothing actually great about that jackal. As I said, it's a lowly animal, but still Radharani is very, very, very compassionate. Very compassionate. So the big concept for today is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. It is mentioned in the 2nd canto, 3rd chapter, 23rd verse. Beautiful verse, but we'll read this verse. Jivan chavo bhagavatangri renum na jatu martyo bhilabheta yastu Shri Vishnu padya manojastu tulasyaha swaswan chavo yastu na vedagandham. Wonderful translation. The person who has not at any time received the dust of the feet of the Lord's pure devotee upon his head is certainly a dead body. Jivan chavo bhagavatangri renum na jatu martyo bhilabheta yastu Shri Vishnu padya manojas tulasya swaswan chavo yastu na veda gandham. And the person who has never experienced the aroma of the tulasi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a dead body, although breathing. Two things is mentioned. Who has not at any time received the dust of the feet of the Lord's pure devotee upon his head is certainly a dead body. And the person who has never experienced the aroma of the tulasi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a dead body, although breathing. Why I chose this verse? The purport is a very interesting purport. Prabhupada is writing, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, the breathing dead body is a ghost. So all of us are like breathing dead body. The breathing dead body is a ghost. When a man dies, he is called dead. But when he appears in a subtle form, not visible to our present vision, and yet acts, such a dead body is called a ghost. Ghosts are always very bad elements, always creating a fearful situation for others. Similarly, the ghost-like non-devotees who have no respect for the pure devotees, nor for the Vishnu deity in the temples, create a fearful situation of the devotees at all times. The Lord never accepts any offering by such impure ghosts. There is a common saying that one should first love the dog of the beloved before one shows any loving sentiments for the beloved. The stage of pure devotion is attained by sincerely serving a pure devotee of the Lord. The first condition of devotional service to the Lord is therefore to be a servant of a pure devotee. And this condition is fulfilled by the statement, a reception of the dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee who has also served another pure devotee. That is the way of pure disciplic succession or devotional parampara. Maharaj Raghugana inquired from the great saint Jadabharat as to how he had attained such a liberated stage of a Paramhamsa. And in answer, the great saint replied as follows: Rahuganaitat tapasa nayati nachejyaya nivapanad grihadva na chandasa naiva jalagni suryer bina mahatpado rajobhishekam. O King Rahugana, the perfectional stage of devotional service or the Paramahamsa stage of life cannot be attained unless one is blessed by the dust of the feet of great devotees. It is never attained by tapasya, austerity, the Vedic worshipping process, acceptance of the renounced order of life, the discharge of the duties of household life, the chanting of the Vedic hymns, or the performance of penances in the hot sun, within cold water, or before the blazing fire. Actually, there is some more in this, and I'm sure I've not got the second part of it. Yes. So I'll read just pay attention. There are just not one more paragraph. In other words, Lord Shri Krishna is the property of his pure unconditional devotees. And as such, only the devotees can deliver Krishna to another devotee. Krishna is never obtainable directly. Lord Chaitanya therefore designated himself as Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayur Dasa Dasa Anudasa, or the most obedient servant of the servants of the Lord, who maintains the Gopi damsels at Vrindavan. A pure devotee therefore never approaches the Lord directly, but tries to please the servant of the Lord's servants, and thus the Lord becomes pleased. And only then can the devotee relish the taste of the tulasi leaves stuck to his lotus feet. Not everybody can appreciate this. You give someone tulasi, he'll return it back. What are you giving some tulasi? So Prabhupada is writing, a pure devotee therefore never approaches the Lord directly, but tries to please the servant of the Lord's servants, and thus the Lord becomes pleased. And only then can the devotee relish the taste of the tulasi leaf stuck to his lotus feet. You see, our position is very simple. We're Gopi Bhartrur Padakamalayur Dasa Dasanu Dasa. Very important thing when a person gets initiated is he gets a surname Dasa. Dasa is a servant. But that is the last thing we remember. Dasa also we try to hide. We say, I'm Hari, I'm Sadananda, I'm Panduranga, or I'm something. We forget that the most important part of our name is Dasa, is servant. Sometimes people will come to this conclusion of why should I serve him? I've got connection with Krishna and Guru. Nothing in between, nothing after that. No, Gopi Bhartrur Padakamalayur Dasa Dasa no Dasa. That is the philosophy of our Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And that is why Prabhupada is saying, without serving a pure devotee, it is not possible to approach Krishna directly. There are just two more lines. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Lord is never to be found by becoming a great scholar of the Vedic literatures, but he is very easily approachable through his pure devotee. In Vrindavan, all the pure devotees pray for the mercy of Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. Srimati Radharani is tender-hearted, feminine counterpart of the Supreme Whole, resembling the perfectional stage of the worldly feminine nature. Therefore, the mercy of Radharani is available very readily to the sincere devotee. And once he recommends such a devotee to Lord Krishna, then Lord Krishna at once accepts the devotee's admittance into his association. The conclusion is therefore that one should be more serious about seeking the mercy of the devotee than that of the Lord directly. And by once doing so, by the goodwill of the devotee, the natural attraction for the service of the Lord will be revived. So this is a big concept. If you want to take away one thing from this, as I said, Radharani is she is embodiment of mercy and compassion. Always put somebody else before her. So even if we are like jackal, we don't have any good qualities, but if we pray to Radharani on this most auspicious appearance day of hers, and if she recommends, there is a verse, unfortunately I could have got There were so many interesting verses about Radharani, so many beautiful compositions by different Vaishnava acharyas, but we have limited time. But if we just remember this one thing of, like, okay, the reason I was telling about those prayers is there is one prayer where Rupa Goswami is saying, in my life, if Radharani says that I'm in her part, like, sometimes, we play cricket. So there are two people who will come as captains and they'll select their team. Oh, you are in my side, you're on my side, you're on my side. So Radharani will have Lalita Sakhi, Vishaka Sakhi. Like that, she's, counting who all are on her side. So I think it is Rupa Goswami who's saying, if just she counts that I'm also on her side, okay, you are no problem, you're standing here, come my side. And that is the perfection of my life. So on this most auspicious appearance day of Radharani, which is going to come tomorrow, let's all pray to Radharani to remain under the influence of the internal potency of the Lord. By her mercy, by her recommendation, we can get Krishna's mercy. You see, when you go to a temple, when you offer anything to the Lord, you brought some fruits, you brought some bananas, some dress, and so many things people bring. Can they directly offer to the Lord? No, they need to go through a pujari who's standing there who can offer it to the Lord. So like that, Radharani is that medium, is that instrument by which we can approach Krishna, who is very compassionate, extremely compassionate. So for a devotee, actually Radhastami is more significant than Janmashtami, though it comes after 15 days of Janmashtami, because if Radharani's mercy is there, even the impossible can be possible. So I have a few announcements because we'll be closing, and very, very important announcements for you. Just hang on there. Okay, so that is about the program for tomorrow. I have a very important announcement to make. I have told this earlier sometime, and I would like to repeat this today. In life, sometimes some occasion comes which is so rare. because the rarity comes because sometimes we are not aware of it, we are ignorant of it, and sometimes there is no one who's there to tell us. And one such occasion is this giving this greatest gift called Srimad Bhagavatam to someone on an auspicious day, which is called Bhadra Purnima. And this Bhadra Purnima is actually falling on 1st of September. So here it is mentioned, I mean, this is a quote from Srila Prabhupada. He's saying there is no literature throughout the universe like Srimad Bhagavatam. There is no comparison. There is no competition. Every word is for the good of the human society. But what is this Bhadra Purnima? So to know that, actually in Srimad Bhagavatam itself, there is a verse which comes, 12th canto, 13th chapter, 13th verse. Praushthapadyam Purnamasyam Hema Simha Samanvitam Dadati Yo Bhagavatam Sa Yati Paramam Gatim. Praushthapadyam refers to this Bhadra Purnima, in the month of Bhadra. Purnamasyam is the full moon. Hema Simha Samanvitam. Upon a golden throne, if somebody is giving Srimad Bhagavatam, Dadati Yo Bhagavatam Sa Yati Paramam Gatim. If on the full moon day of the month of Bhadra, one places Srimad Bhagavatam on a golden throne and gives it as a gift, he will attain the supreme transcendental destination. Sa Yati Paramam Gatim. Today is 24th of August. That means we have another 7 days. If you don't have a Bhagavatam, please do have it on this auspicious day. Gift it to yourself first. Because if you gift it to yourself, anyway, you'll attain the supreme transcendental destination. If you have it yourself, think of your near and dear ones. Bhagavatam, I mean, it's an investment for not just lifetime, for lifetimes after lifetimes. Anybody who gets and hears and reads, even just touches this Bhagavatam, gets the benefit. What to speak of receiving it on the Bhadra Purnima, because Bhagavatam itself is telling, if on the full moon day of the month of Bhadra, one places, so this is called the Bhadra Mas. 1st of September is the Purnima, or it is 2nd September, 1st or 2nd, whatever it is. One places Srimad Bhagavatam on a golden throne and gives it as a gift, you will attain the supreme transcendental destination. So do reach out to us if in case you are interested in participating in this gifting Bhagavatam to someone. There is nothing more sublime than that. We will help you with that. Hit this. Okay, no, this is different. So this is our upcoming programs. This is not done. Hold on. Able to see?
Yes, Prabhu.
So now for tomorrow, what should we do? Presentation for that. So for Radhastami tomorrow, to get the mercy of Srimati Radharani, here are certain things that you can do. Chant plus 4 rounds. Whatever number of rounds of Hare Krishna mantra you are chanting, add plus 4 on Radhastami to please Srimati Radharani. If you are new to chanting and not chanting any rounds, please chant 4 rounds of Hare Krishna mantra. Fasting till 12 noon is very important. It's a very auspicious day. Please fast till noon tomorrow. So, Nirjala fasting, fasting by taking only water, or fasting by taking only water, milk, and fruits. So I think it is not even a full day fasting. I would strongly recommend go for Nirjala fasting. You want to attend the Mangala Arati tomorrow, we will stream it. Get up early in the morning and join at 5 o'clock for Mangala Arati at our place. You can worship Radharani at your home. Attend the Abhishekam at 7 p.m. It's saying. We'll have at 7:15. And hear the lecture and quiz. So these are some of the things which we can do, wherever we are, to pray to Radharani, so that we come out of the influence of external energy and come under the shelter of internal potency of the Lord. So with that thought, with that note, I will stop today's session. Anybody has any questions or any comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, I'm hearing.
Prabhu, could you please summarize the today's session, because it is very fast actually. So in just little bit statement, like who we are, who is Radharani, and who is the super soul, like that. In just little bit summarize.
Okay, good. So at least you have some things. Otherwise, I was thinking probably you were somewhere else. So the session, we spoke about, to understand Radha Tattva. I told about the first thing that I told was Yad Anudhyasina Yukta Karma Granthi Nibandhana. How by having the sword of remembrance of Krishna and his activities, one can cut the knots of Karma Granthi. What are these Karma Granthi? We saw that how we are tied up by these laws of material nature because of the activities that we are doing. Activities that we are doing is covered by the Avaranatmika Sakti and Prakshapatmika Sakti, like the example of that cool cigarette, which promises that you'll be cool by burning cigarettes. Or the hog eating stool doesn't know how abominable that condition is, how pitiable, but he thinks he's enjoying the hog. Similarly, people are also in this material world thinking they're enjoying, like that cool cigarette. But that is exactly what Karma Granthi is. And that is why, Prabhupada is saying that, we need a sharp sword to cut that. And then we went to the 3 parts. The first part was, who are we? In that, I started with the Birla group of the Birla family asking for a session to be taken by Srila Prabhupada on how to be more successful. But interestingly, Prabhupada says success means, since we are all constitutionally controlled, our nature is we are controlled, instead of being controlled by the external nature where we are constantly poked by the trident of Maya Devi, let's go to the influence of internal energy of the Lord, where we can remain constantly happy and blissful. Mahatmanas tu mam partha daivim prakritim ashrita. That was the verse we saw. And how one can become Mahatma? By associating with other Mahatma. What is the position of Krishna? Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, Arjuna says. So he is Param Brahma. He is completely pure. He doesn't have any material contamination, any material tinge. And also he has got unlimited energies. Parasya Saktir Vividhaiva Shruyat. Swabhaviki Jnana Balakriya. by his direction, by his will, everything is working on, just automatically. He need not be indulged in any of the activities. Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. He doesn't have to do any work. But that same Lord, so who's Radharani? So Radharani is the same Krishna when he expands his Allahadini Sakti, when it is Vikriti, when it transforms, Krishna becomes two bodies, Krishna and Radha. That is the expansion of his Allahadini Sakti. And that same Radharani, when she serves and she is so nicely engaged in devotional service of the Lord, Krishna also becomes confused and becomes curious how Radharani is having so much of attraction and how she is getting so much of desire to serve me. And so Krishna comes as Chaitanya, which is again Krishna and Radharani becoming one. But the most important thing, or the quality or the attribute of Radharani, is her compassion, her soft-heartedness. And that's what we heard in that verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. If in this human form of life one has not served a pure devotee, it is a dead body. If he has not developed a taste to develop attraction for the smell of tulasi offered to the Lord, it is a dead body. But this can only happen by rendering devotional service to a pure devotee of the Lord. Very interestingly, Prabhupada quotes this verse very often. Yame bhakta janah partha name bhaktas chate janaha mat bhaktanam chaye bhaktas te me bhaktatma mataha. The translation is, Lord Krishna told Arjuna, those who are directly my devotees are actually not my devotees. But those who are devotees of my servant are factually my devotees. So to attract the mercy of the Lord, we cannot approach him directly. He gets more pleased, more happy when we serve his pure devotees. That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Gopi Bhartrur Pada Kamalayor Dasa Dasa Anu Dasa. So on this auspicious day of Srimati Radharani's appearance, we should pray to her that we remain engaged in devotional service to a servant of hers, so that she makes a note of, she notices who are we and recommends to Krishna that, okay, Chinmaya, wherever he is in America, even though he is engaged in so many materialistic activities, also has a desire to serve Krishna. And if she recommends, Krishna will accept. That is the summary.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Any other question? Okay, if nothing else, then we will meet again tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. That's when we will have Kirtan. And the Wednesday class that we will have on Vaishnava song is going to be on Srimati Radharani, one of very beautiful bhajans. So we will see how to understand one song at least on Radharani. There are countless songs, but at least one we will try to see, because there are, as I said, we are limited with our time. But we will see and hear more glories of Srimati Radharani on Wednesday. And tomorrow we will have, as we have already shared in that video, we will have a grand Abhishekam to Radha Krishna. There will be Aarti, and there will be an audiovisual presentation based on the lectures of Srila Prabhupada. So it's very wonderful. Don't miss tomorrow's session. And if, okay, one more important thing which I forgot in summarizing is the Bhadra Purnima, which is on 1st of September, gifting someone Srimad Bhagavatam. Please think about it and reach out to us if you want to give someone. There is a hand raised by Pratima Arun from the beginning. Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, it was by mistake.
Okay, no problem. That's fine. If nothing else, you can all come in front of your camera and raise your hands, and we will chant once Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Rama Rama, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Radharani ki,
Jai.
Hare
Mahotsav ki,
Hare.
जय
Jai.
हरि बोल
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Hare
हरे
Krishna.
कृष्णा प्रभु जी
Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी
I heard Mataji. I think I Hare Krishna.
हरे
हरे
कृष्ण
कृष्ण